Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're going to head south of the border to explore something pretty fascinating.
Okay.
Mexico's ambition
Oh, wow.
to become a major player in the global semiconductor industry.
Interesting.
And get this, it's not just about setting up factories.
Oh.
We're talking about homegrown innovation,
Hmm.
potentially impacting everything from global supply chains to local businesses and even the environment.
Wow, that's quite a goal.
Yeah, it is a big one.
Yeah.
And you might be surprised to learn that this move is actually rooted in decades of Mexican research,
Yes.
not just in electronics,
Okay.
but in fields like optics and advanced materials.
So there's a foundation already there.
Yeah, there is. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. We're going to get into all that.
Cool. I'm intrigued. Let's dive in.
All right, so let's start with the big news that kind of kicked off all this buzz, the announcement of Foxconn's new semiconductor plant in Mexico.
Right. Yeah, that was big news. And I think what's really interesting here is the government's goal, they don't just want to manufacture chips.
Right.
They want to design their own.
So it's about more than just being a manufacturing hub.
Exactly.
They're aiming for a level of technological independence.
Yeah.
But why now? What's driving this ambition?
Well, I think the global chip shortage we saw recently really exposed the fragility of supply chains, you know?
Yeah.
It hit the auto industry especially hard, remember? And that's
Yeah.
part of why the U.S. has been pushing for domestic chip production, especially in Arizona.
Right.
Mexico sees an opportunity here to not just collaborate with the U.S., particularly in the Sonora region, but to carve out its own space in the industry.
Given the close economic ties between the U.S. and Mexico, I can see how that makes strategic sense. This also fits into the broader trend of reshoring and regionalizing supply chains, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. Companies and governments are recognizing the risks of relying too heavily on a single region for essential components.
Right.
So Mexico is strategically positioning itself to capitalize on this shift.
Now, I know some people might be surprised to hear about Mexico designing their own WN chips. Is this a totally new field for them?
That's the thing. It's not as new as you might think. Mexico has a history of research in advanced electronics, especially at institutions like INAOE, the National Institute of Astrophysics, Optics, and Electronics.
Okay, so there's already a foundation of knowledge there. It's not just factories popping up out of nowhere.
That's right. And even beyond electronics, there are research programs in optics and advanced materials, particularly at Siena Vestav. The Center for Research and Advanced Studies are strong. And while those fields might seem unrelated to semiconductors at first glance, they actually provide a critical base for this kind of work.
That's a good point. It's like these different areas of expertise are coming together to make this semiconductor push possible. But let's talk about the impact this could have on Mexico. Beyond the high-tech jobs, how could this potentially benefit everyday people?
Well, the potential ripple effects on the Mexican economy are significant. This isn't just about attracting big tech companies. It's about opening doors for Mexican SMEs, small and medium enterprises, to become part of these global supply chains.
Okay, so can you paint a picture for us? How could that play out in reality?
Sure, imagine a small business in Querétaro, maybe one that currently manufactures electronic components.
Okay.
With a thriving semiconductor industry in Mexico, they could suddenly find themselves supplying parts to major tech companies, even becoming a global leader in a specific tech niche. We could see entire tech clusters emerge, kind of like a Silicon Valley, but with a distinct Mexican flavor.
That's quite a shift. And with those kinds of opportunities emerging, I imagine there will be a growing need for people with very specific skills.
Absolutely. And universities are already adapting, incorporating fields like electronics, engineering, nanotechnology, and chip design into their programs.
So we could have young Mexican students working in cutting-edge labs, designing the chips of the future. That's a pretty inspiring image. But we also need to talk about the environmental impact of chip manufacturing, right? It's a resource-intensive process. How is Mexico approaching that aspect?
Yeah, you're right. Chip manufacturing uses a lot of water and energy.
Sure.
But I think this is where Mexico has a real opportunity to differentiate itself by prioritizing sustainable practices from the get-go.
Okay.
They can attract investment from environmentally conscious partners and position themselves as leaders in green tech.
It sounds like Mexico wants to be more than just a manufacturing hub. They're aiming to lead in chip design, the high-value added area. What needs to happen to make that ambition a reality?
That's a great point. And this is where institutions like CMVestDav and INAOE are vital, working to link research with industry and build up local expertise in chip design.
So it seems like they're really trying to create a complete ecosystem from research and design to manufacturing with a focus on sustainability. What specific things need to be in place to attract the investment need to get this industry off the ground?
Well, smart policies are absolutely crucial. Mexico needs to offer clear incentives like tax breaks and subsidies, streamline the bureaucracy for tech companies, and ensure they have access to modern infrastructure.
Looking at successful models like Singapore and Ireland, are there any specific lessons Mexico can learn from their experience?
While Mexico needs to forge its own path, there are definitely valuable lessons to be learned from those countries, especially when it comes to investing in infrastructure and education. And let's not forget the success stories of Taiwan and South Korea.
Yeah.
They went from practically zero to giants in the semiconductor world by focusing on strategic investment and smart policy.
So there's a roadmap of sorts,
hmm
but Mexico needs to adapt it to their own context. Now, we've talked about the U.S. being a potential partner, but what are some of the challenges that could come with relying too heavily on that relationship?
That's a key question. Things like the CHIPS Act, which encourages U.S.-Mexico collaboration, could be reversed with a change in U.S. leadership.
Oh, right.
And even with a strong partnership, Mexico needs to ensure that the semiconductor boom benefits its own economy and its people, not just foreign companies.
So diversification of partnerships beyond North America is crucial to mitigate that risk.
Exactly. And it raises a really important question. How can Mexico balance attracting international investment with nurturing its own WN domestic tech sector?
That's a question that will require careful consideration as they move forward. But overall, it seems like Mexico is on the verge of something pretty remarkable. It's not just about chips. It's about a nation embracing innovation, aiming for economic growth, and even aspiring to lead in sustainable technology. This could be a defining moment for Mexico on the global tech stage if they play their cards, right? But there's a lot more to unpack here. Join us in part 2, where we'll delve into some of the specific technologies and innovations driving this transformation.
Welcome back. Last time we set the stage talking about Mexico's ambitions in the semiconductor industry. Now let's zoom in and explore some of the specific technologies and innovations fueling this transformation.
I'm ready to geek out a bit.
hmm
What are some areas where Mexican researchers and companies are already making waves?
Well, one area that really stands out is microelectronics. Mexico has a strong foundation here, thanks in part to institutions like INAOE, which we mentioned earlier. They've been developing advanced sensors, microcontrollers, and other components that are essential for a huge range of applications.
So we're not just talking about the big, powerful chips that go into computers and smartphones, right?
Mhm.
It's also about the smaller, specialized chips that are embedded in everything from cars to medical devices.
Exactly. And these smaller chips are becoming increasingly important with the expansion of the Internet of Things. More and more devices are being connected to the internet, which means the demand for these types of chips is only going to grow.
Okay, so Mexico has a solid base in microelectronics. Where else are you seeing potential for them?
Another area that's really exciting is photonics. The science of light. Mexican researchers, especially those at Semiconductors, are developing cutting-edge photonic devices.
Hmm.
These devices can transmit data at incredibly high speeds using light instead of electricity.
I'm trying to picture this. Is this similar to how fiber optic cables work?
It is, but on a much MUCH smaller scale.
Okay.
We're talking about integrating photonic components onto chips, creating what are called photonic integrated circuits. Think of it like shrinking down the capabilities of fiber optic cables to a microscopic level.
That sounds incredibly complex, but also incredibly efficient. What are the advantages of using light instead of electricity for data transmission?
For one speed, light travels much faster than electrons, which enables significantly faster data transfer rates. And on top of that, photonic devices consume less energy and generate less heat than their electronic counterparts, which is a big plus in terms of sustainability.
So it sounds like Mexico's existing expertise in optics is really giving them a leg up in this cutting-edge field of photonics. What are some of the real-world applications we might see coming out of this research?
Well, the possibilities are vast. Think about things like even faster internet speeds, more powerful supercomputers, medical imaging devices that use light to see inside the body. We could see a whole new generation of technologies emerging from this field.
Wow, that's incredible to think about. We've got microelectronics and photonics. What other areas are bubbling up in Mexican labs?
Well, nanotechnology is another field where they're making significant progress.
Nanotechnology.
Yeah, researchers are working at the atomic and molecular level, manipulating materials to create new materials with unique properties.
That sounds straight out of science fiction. Can you break down how it's being applied to the semiconductor industry specifically?
Sure. One example is in the creation of transistors, those tiny building blocks of chips. By manipulating materials at the nanoscale, researchers can make transistors smaller and more powerful.
Hmm.
This means you can pack more of them onto a single chip, leading to faster processing speeds and larger memory capacity.
It's like shrinking down the components of a computer to the size of atoms. What are some other ways nanotechnology is being used in this field?
The applications are incredibly diverse. We're talking about things like more efficient solar cells for renewable energy, better batteries, and even sensors that can detect minute changes in the environment.
It's amazing how manipulating materials on such a tiny scale can have such a huge impact both on technology and on our efforts to create a more sustainable future. It seems like Mexico is well positioned to become a real leader in this area. But all of this innovation requires brain power.
Hmm.
Are there specific universities or programs in Mexico that are really leading the charge?
Yeah, several universities are making significant contributions. The National Autonomous University of Mexico, UNAM, has a strong program in both microelectronics and nanotechnology. Then there's the Monterrey Institute of Technology and Higher Education, IDSM, which is known for its focus on innovation and entrepreneurship in the tech sector.
And of course, institutions like CINVESTAV and INAOI are playing a vital role in bridging the gap between research and industry.
Exactly. They're not just churning out cutting-edge research, they're also fostering the next generation of tech entrepreneurs and innovators who can translate that research into real-world application.
So we have the research, we have the talent, we have the entrepreneurial spirit. What else does Mexico need to succeed in the semiconductor world?
Well, collaboration is key. We've discussed the potential benefits of partnering with the U.S., but Mexico is also wisely exploring collaborations with other countries that have strong semiconductor industries like Germany and Japan.
So it makes sense to learn from the best and build those strategic partnerships, especially in such a competitive global industry. But what are these collaborations going to look like in practice? Are they going beyond just research and development?
Absolutely. We're talking about sharing knowledge, best practices, and even manufacturing expertise. It's about building a global network of support and innovation, not just trying to go it alone. But collaboration is only part of the equation. Attracting foreign investment is another crucial piece of the puzzle.
Right. We talked earlier about policy incentives like tax breaks and streamlined bureaucracy. What else can Mexico do to make itself a magnet for semiconductor companies?
Infrastructure is key. They need to ensure reliable electricity, access to clean water, and modern transportation networks that can support the needs of these high-tech industries.
That makes sense. Chip fabrication plants require a lot of resources, so a robust infrastructure is essential.
It is, and it goes beyond just the physical infrastructure. Mexico also needs to create a business-friendly environment that welcomes foreign investors.
So things like clear regulations, a stable political climate, and a skilled workforce are all part of the equation.
Exactly. Mexico is making progress in these areas, but there's always room for improvement.
It sounds like they're laying a solid foundation for a thriving semiconductor industry.
Hmm.
But let's be realistic. What are some potential roadblocks or challenges they need to be aware of?
Of course, there are always challenges. One of the biggest hurdles for Mexico is competition. The semiconductor industry is incredibly competitive with major players like Taiwan, South Korea, and the U.S., all vying for dominance.
So how can Mexico carve out its own space in such a crowded field? What can they do to set themselves apart?
Well, one approach is to focus on niche areas where they can develop a competitive advantage. Maybe they specialize in designing and manufacturing chips for specific industries like automotive aerospace or renewable energy.
It's like the old saying, the riches are in the niches. Focus on areas where you can really excel instead of trying to be everything to everyone.
That's right. Another way to stand out is to leverage Mexico's unique strengths, such as its proximity to the U.S. market and its rapidly growing pool of skilled engineers.
Being close to a major market like the U.S. is a huge advantage, and having a talented workforce is essential in any high-tech industry. So despite the competition, it sounds like Mexico has a lot going for it.
They absolutely do. And let's not forget the broader potential benefits a thriving semiconductor industry could bring to Mexico: economic growth, job creation, and even advancements in sustainability. This is about so much more than just building chips.
Exactly. This could transform Mexico as a nation.
It really could. And that's what makes this story so compelling. It has the potential to impact so many different aspects of Mexican society. But there's another piece of this puzzle we need to explore in part 3. We'll step back and consider the potential long-term impacts of Mexico's semiconductor leap. What could this mean for their future on the global stage? We'll delve into those questions when we return.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive exploring Mexico's move into the semiconductor industry.
Yeah, we have.
From the exciting technologies they're developing to the potential economic ripple effects, it's clear that this is a story with far-reaching implications.
Yeah.
So let's step back now and consider what this semiconductor leap could mean for Mexico's future in the long term.
You know what strikes me is that Mexico isn't just playing catch-up here.
Right.
They're positioning themselves to be a leader in a truly critical industry of the future.
Yeah.
Semiconductors, after all, are the brains of modern technology.
And they really are in everything these days, from our phones and laptops to cars, medical equipment, even the infrastructure that makes our cities run.
Absolutely. And as technology keeps advancing, the demand for semiconductors is only going to grow.
Yeah.
Think about the trends we're seeing. Artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, 5G networks.
Right.
These all rely on increasingly complex and powerful chips.
So by investing in a strong semiconductor sector, now Mexico isn't just thinking about economic benefits.
Right.
They're looking at technological independence,
Yes,
at the ability to compete on a global scale in the decades to come.
they are. And it goes beyond just the economic implications.
Okay.
A thriving semiconductor industry can have a huge impact on Mexican society as a whole.
I'm curious to hear more about that. How could this potentially affect everyday life for people in Mexico?
One major area is access to technology and information.
Okay.
If chips become more affordable and readily available,
Yeah?
that could mean cheaper and more accessible smartphones, computers, and internet access for millions of Mexicans.
That's a really important point. Bridging the digital divide is essential for everything from education and economic opportunity to social inclusion.
Exactly, and it's not just about access. A strong semiconductor sector could drive innovation in all sorts of other industries.
Can you give us some specific examples?
Sure, take healthcare.
Okay.
We could see Mexican companies developing innovative medical devices powered by advanced chips. Things like more sophisticated diagnostic tools, remote patient monitoring systems, and even personalized medicine based on genetic analysis.
It's fascinating to think about how these tiny components could lead to such significant advancements in healthcare.
Yeah.
It's not just about building chips, it's about using them to improve people's lives in tangible ways.
Exactly. And these advancements could extend to other sectors as well. Smarter agriculture, more efficient and sustainable transportation systems, even cities that can better manage resources and respond to emergencies. All of these innovations are made possible by advances in semiconductor technology.
So it's like a chain reaction, a domino effect. A strong semiconductor industry could trigger a cascade of innovation across multiple sectors, leading to a better quality of life for everyone.
That's a great way to put it. It's not just about economic growth. It's about using technology to solve real-world problems and create a more equitable and sustainable future for Mexico.
It's about giving them the tools and the knowledge to shape their own destiny in the digital age.
Precisely. Of course, we have to acknowledge that there will be challenges along the way.
Right.
We've talked about the fierce competition, the need for smart policies, and the importance of attracting investment while nurturing domestic talent.
But it does seem like Mexico is approaching this strategically. They're learning from the successes and missteps of others, and they're looking to leverage their own unique strengths.
That's what's crucial. This isn't about blindly following someone else's blueprint.
Right.
It's about charting a course that's right for Mexico.
It's about seizing this opportunity to not just participate in the global tech revolution, but to lead it in a way that reflects Mexico's own values and aspirations. Now I have to ask, what if 10 or 20 years from now we see made in Mexico, not just on clothing and cars, but on the chips that power the world's most innovative technologies?
It's an intriguing thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
What if Mexico becomes synonymous with technological innovation, sustainability, and social progress? That's a future worth working towards. And this bold move into the semiconductor industry is a significant step in that direction.
It's a story that's just beginning to unfold, and we'll be watching closely to see where it leads. But for now, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Mexico's semiconductor ambitions. We hope you found this journey as fascinating as we did.
And we hope it sparked some new ideas and perspectives for you. What other industries do you think could be transformed by a thriving semiconductor sector in Mexico? It's a question worth pondering. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.